So now we are going to be talking about what Kingsley's Plantation used to look like and what it looks like today. This is the home of the person who oversaw all of the slaves, and this house is the owner's house where Kingsley's family lived. As you can see, the two houses are pretty close to each other because they worked together and the food was prepared in Kingsley's home, and they also had to discuss a lot of things with each other. Looking back, imagine instead of the empty historic building and the peaceful riverfront of today, a slave owner's family sits watching from the porch of their comfortable home as cargo-laden boats pass by on the river. Breezes off the water cool the planter's family, smells of fresh baked bread waft from the kitchen. House slaves carry the evening meal to the planter's home. High up on the window's walk, the owner keeps a watchful eye on his slaves as they hustle across the kitchen yard. Imagine, instead of the lush green landscape of today, a long dusty road stretches to the slave cabins and fields beyond. Bent over cotton plants under the hot sun, with dusk-filled air, enslaved people toil day in and day out, amidst the odor of sweat and domestic animals. The slaves' constant companies are the relentless mosquitoes and flies. History of a house. The house at the north end will be in the course of a month a very comfortable habitation, and in any other country a handsome situation. Planter John McLean built the original portion of the house with the use of enslaved craftsmen and laborers. It was designed to catch the ocean breezes for the comfort of the owner's family. And now we are going to talk about inside of the house, more specifically the kitchen. All day, every day, the kitchen was a place where African and European cultural traditions blended. Foods and spices came from all over the world. Black-eyed peas, okra, and sesame were brought from Africa and used in plantation cooking. The kitchen was a place of activity all day, every day. And slaves worked from dusk to dawn, preparing meals in a small, hot, and smoky kitchen. Amid smells of spices and the sounds of chopping vegetables, voices could be heard discussing the day's recipes and ingredients. They used this fireplace to prepare their food, and this is where people met and discussed different things that need to be done. These are different materials that were used to make the house. This is a walkway on the way to the slave owner's house, and free blacks and several private owners lived at this plantation until it was transferred to the state of Florida in 1955. And now we are seeing a view of outside the owner's house and the slave cabins' houses. And now we are going to be discussing the slave cabins. So this is what they originally used to look like. There was originally 32 cabins, but now only 23 remain, possibly due to weather damage and other circumstances. And the slave cabins were made from tabby, which is basically cooking oyster shells in a kiln for lime and adding water and sand. The plantation was originally 1,000 acres, most of it being forest, but now it is only 60 acres. People can also go hiking in this area today. They used this land for crops, and there was fields located in the back. So different crops they grew on the plantation were cotton, citrus, corn, sugarcane, potatoes, and beans. The plantation was self-sufficient, which basically means all of the food needed for the planter's family and community was grown here. So they all fed themselves using their own food they grew. So crops were grown and sold for profit, but unlike other farms today, the workers were forced into labor, called slaves. They only made about $2 a week. But even after they worked hard all day on the crops, their days were not over. They had personal needs to tend to, such as growing their own food in their garden for themselves to eat, cooking, or making repairs to their own home. Managing labor. Many crops were grown on the plantation, but Sea Island cotton produced at the highest profit. Growing and processing it required a complex work structure, which is why they created the task system. The Plantation Era in Florida, Fort George Island. The Plantation Era began in Florida in 1763 after Britain took control from Spain. Soon after, the first planter was given land here and brought his slaves and household. Grown for profit and subsistence. Cash crops like Sea Island cotton, indigo, and sugarcane made a profit for the owner. Other crops like potatoes, okra, and yams fed the families of both owners and the slaves. There are different animals located here, such as the gopher turtle, as you can see in these pictures. This was a tool used to help the slaves harvest the crops, and these pictures describe how the sugar was made, how much it cost to make, and the process they did to make the sugar.